Hey, folks. Welcome to Kaiser's Castle. That was Axe Marks the Spot by Axion Ghost, a friend of mine who makes the music. Today, I have a special treat for you. To be very honest, as I always am with everybody, I did not know that OBS only took a certain amount of your CPU. And so I had to actually figure it out, and I had to go to a tech guy after I did this interview with a great guy you're about to meet. His name is John Carman. He's a former Secret Service and customs agent, whistleblower, by the way. And because he whistleblew, he drew the ire of different things. We'll talk about that towards the end of the show. But I want John to be able to come on, and we have something in common. I was introduced to him by Jaffe Ryder from WPRPN, World Pirate Radio Podcast Network, and I'm excited to have him on again, and he's been gracious enough that even with my mess up, he decides, well, I'll come on and we'll do another show, and we'll do it just like the last one, so we're going to try to be as close as we were to the last one for the introduction to my audience on Sword Point 9 on YouTube, for you guys to all get to know this gentleman. And I've gotten to know him, and he's a really good guy. And if you want, you can tell people how to reach you or anything, John. Here's your time.
Oh, cool. There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yep, gotcha.
I was looking for a article on one of my tabs here to send to you. I don't know if you could see it with your bandwidth or not, but there was an article written about my situation while I was still at U.S. Customs. On April 20th, 1997, I think it was, by Chris Ruddy, who used to write for the Pittsburgh Union Tribune. And he had a special photographer and somebody else come down to meet with me. So I'm pictured right in front of the Otay Mesa Port of Entry on a light day, where there's hardly any traffic, that sort of thing. But I'll get to it in a minute here. But at least you can hear me, right? So, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I can hear you fine. I'm just trying to work while we're doing things. So, go on.
Yeah, greetings to all of our fellow Americans out there. You said it lightly about what's going on. I've had this put to me so hard. I'm just like beside myself type of thing. And I send emails to the White House on routine. I've sent hard letters. I've sent copies of documents. I'm still not getting a response from this guy in the office right now, but I've been reporting stuff openly since 1995.
Oh, definitely, and that's something.
And that's during the Clinton administration.
Yeah, that's something I want to get towards the end of the program. I just want you to give out your contact information at the beginning, and then I want you to walk us through some of the really cool stuff that I know you've shared with me on, so the listeners can know more about you, brother.
Well, I can give you a quick rundown. I was in a military family. We traveled every 3 years. I've lived in Texas, back to San Diego, back to Texas, to Japan, where I learned martial arts, Japanese, and the culture and so forth. And then back to California, up around Ridgecrest, China Lake, on a special military base. Why do they all have to all be top secret, right? Do you see a pattern there? And
I always do, yeah.
And then my dad doesn't tell me anything, right?
Right.
He just goes off and plays golf or whatever. But college, then I went to San Diego. After 3 years of college, finished my third year, got two two-year degrees. Then I went into Secret Service in 74. That was right after Nixon had just left. So the Watergate stuff was going down at that time frame. So I went through the 19-week academy in D.C., which later got switched down to FLETC in Georgia by
Yep.
Jimmy Carter. We sort of touched on that the other day. And then I went through specialized training up at Beltsville, which they named after another former special agent, who I won't repeat his name because I think he was involved in stuff with Kennedy years ago.
Right.
But there's a lot of that coming out now. A lot of these other people that you wouldn't believe. And in fact, I have to mention Abraham Bolden, who's the first black Secret Service agent that was appointed to the Presidential Protection Detail of John F. Kennedy by JFK in 60-61. And he suffered retaliation, by the way. He disclosed conspiracy to kill Kennedy in Chicago back then. And then they switched it down to Dallas, the bad guys.
Right.
So there's an early example of what happens to whistleblowers. That's how they do it. They just say, no problem, we'll just set him up, put him in prison, or get a record against him of some sort and just totally destroy his life. So you have to bounce back. You have to get up. You get knocked down like in judo and you get back up. So I've been doing this for years. But after I left Secret Service, I went to San Diego PD because I was trying to get back to San Diego to get into U.S. Customs to fight the war on drugs. And I turned down Calexico like over a dozen times because I didn't want to work in the desert. I said, wait a minute, I could be in San Diego. Why would I want to work over there unless it was a temporary assignment? And then I took a job with San Diego PD. Then I went to a private investigator for about a year, got my license. Then I went to San Francisco to the U.S. Mint, where I protected over 1,000 pounds of gold. That's on my website, page 2, if you want to go to customscorruption.com /page2.htm or something.
Yeah, I'll make sure that all the links.
That's a good site with all the cool pictures.
Yep. I'll make sure that all those links will be shared in the videos, folks. So when he mentions that, just realize you can go to the bottom of the video in the description, and you will find links to every site and his. Was that Patreon or what kind of site was that?
Patreon is a donation site, kind of like GoFundMe, but I never had any luck with GoFundMe because it's kind of restricted on how many people on your Facebook account, which is kind of weird. All of a sudden, they have opened up my account somehow, or something happened where I can friend a ton of people, and each one of those people has got 20, 30, 40, 50, 75 to 100 friends or whatever. So I'm networking and trying to reach out to as many people as I can. But before, I was restricted to less than 200 to 500.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
Figure. And I've seen people with right. So they're purposely restricting me.
It's amazing. Well, they're doing that to a lot of people who happen to have right of center belief. They just think that well, of course, anybody who voted for Trump must be a Nazi, but whatever. It's all BS. But the interesting thing to me, and I think to my audience, is here's the nexus. You guys think that me in my 50s is old school. He was inventing old school, who I'm talking to right now, Mr. John Carman. And we do have a couple things in common. We know FLETC. We know Brunswick, Georgia. He's probably been to St. Simon's Island, Jekyll Island, where I bought the creature of Jekyll Island at the gift shop right outside that big hotel that used to be owned by, was it Rockefeller who owned that? And I may be telling a fib on that, but I thought, I can't remember the guy's name. So folks, correct me. The big, beautiful white hotel was owned by one of them. And then Sea Island. And then there's that other island of horses. I'm sure you've been to all those places. And I can't remember the horse island's name for some reason. But this is the thing that...
Not really.
Yep.
Not really. But some people went off island or off base because we were on an old military CIA base that was converted. Yep. I was out running and staying in shape and doing martial arts and studying while other people were getting drunk and didn't care about their grades. So those were the guys that were being pulled through the system without having to pass their tests. In fact, one guy in particular, well, I'll mention one guy. He failed the immigration test. I go, wait a minute, you got to get 72% on the stupid immigration test
Minimum.
because we're working at the border. You have to be able to look at documents, passports, entry documents issued by our country as well as passports from other countries and our visa stamps and so on and so forth, and be able to tell is it valid or not. If it isn't, then you have to send it into immigration anyway. But some places you are duly cross-designated, and you can issue stamps and you can cancel and do all kinds of interesting immigration stuff. But this guy failed, and he was
Yep.
on the telephone in the barracks, if you want to call it that, calling the district director in San Diego in tears. Oh, I failed. I failed this. Two times. They gave him a third try. I think by the third time, they basically did an oral exam to make sure he was going to pass, or to make sure it wasn't some other glitch. Because some of us, I don't like taking tests. I hate them. I'll do it, especially if it's a subject I know about. I'm telling you, I aced the San Diego Police post certified academies.
Right, right. No,
I
that's not.
mean, it's
We're not
you
disagreeing
just
on that.
study it.
We're not disagreeing on that at all. Now, Fletzy, you would be shocked. It used to be when you went through and when I went through originally, it was run by Treasury, and
Right.
and
It switched.
it switched to Homeland, and I was there for that changeover, but they were still using all of Treasury stuff, and all the emblems. It was
Yeah.
still on our sweatsuits. Remember the blue suits we had to wear, and the little
Yep.
yellow
Yep.
and blue banded socks that Fletzy probably spent millions of dollars on just to have special socks made, and just
Yeah.
all
I
the
don't.
different
Well, you
stuff.
know what that's like. That's like R&R uniforms.
Right, right. But the interesting.
R&R uniforms was the designated uniform company, and that means that somebody benefited in that administration.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure, and they made millions on that because they only started replacing it once Homeland took it over, and then it was a dark blue. It was no longer that real light blue uniform, brother. So
Yeah.
I went through it twice. I went through it when I was with DOD in the beginning. You're now looking at in the first shot that I had, you saw because of what we call Nexus, and Nexus is when an agency for like customs and immigration. Customs was done by Treasury, immigration was done by um,
You're
DOJ.
breaking off.
Yeah, well, I'm still here. So, as I'm saying, customs was done by Treasury, and then immigration was done by DOJ back when he was in, but he got crossed into immigration also, which was cool. I mean, I get where he's coming from.
Well,
But
let me
with,
interject
but,
because I don't want
okay,
you to go off on a tangent on this, but ever since DHS came into being, which was through Tom Ridge, who was some governor
right.
somewhere in
Governor in
another state,
Pennsylvania. Yeah.
he didn't know Jack Scheitzen about what he was doing. And it's real nice that these guys feel like they have to do something that'll impact or change something for the better, but they didn't. All they did was put everything into the same bowl, stir it up, and he walked away.
They
So
actually,
my feelings are not very positive about Tom Ridge or Michael Chertoff, who both lied since that day. A lot of the people since the Clinton administration have continually lied about the border issues. It is an open sieve on the
yep,
northern border. It's an open sieve on the bottom at the southern border.
yep.
People could still get in, and it's beyond 1,000 people a day. It's over 4 to 5 to 6,000
Even
illegals coming in every day, and yet people don't think about the suitcase nukes that are
yeah,
possibly already here.
even on the seaports. But my
Well, that's
point,
everything.
my
Airport,
point, my
seaport.
my point with Homeland was they did a lot of screw ups, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, John.
Yeah,
But my point being was they dropped in Secret Service even into Homeland. They
I
also
know.
took out of transportation uh, Coast Guard,
TSA and all that,
and
Coast Guard.
and TSA didn't even exist. It was done at every airport locally.
I'm not
And
sure. FBI also.
no, FBI is not in Homeland. They just
Think about it. Think
yeah.
about that. FBI, CIA.
Well, yeah, of course. That was a combination that
No, no, I'm saying it for a reason. NSA,
right.
right? So if you think about all the ones that weren't included, why the hell did anybody allow that idiot Tom Ridge to put the Secret Service, which is under the executive branch? If everything else fails, the President of the United States at least has his executive authorities to pull his resources out of the Treasury and so forth. And when they put it to DHS, it changed the framework on the chain of command. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it changed the total complexion of it. No, I get it, and that's where I was going with this, because you're exactly right. And then they diluted the worst agency in the federal government is, and I guarantee you'll agree with me. We went to school with these guys, BATF agents now, when it used to just be ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms.
Right,
They
right.
were nothing more than revenuers for Treasury Department, and they still are.
They
But
still
they,
are.
but the funny part is,
Revenuers.
yeah, revenuers. That's who the people in West Virginia used to make fools out of all the time. But my point is that these idiots, and they have made consistent crimes against the American people, and you know this, and so do I, because of how many judgments have been held against them by the Supreme Court in particular of abuses of American citizens. But my greater point to that is that they put them in DOJ. They were the dirtiest federal agency back when I first started. I'm sure they were back when you first started. That anybody had ever seen. They lie, they connive, they set
No,
people up.
that's going agencies nationally wide.
Right.
Everybody is starting to adapt. I see it everywhere. I see
Yeah.
indicators of this everywhere at different agencies, state, local, and federal. And I'm
Right.
state, local, and federally trained.
Right.
They're not doing what they used to do back in the old day. They are doing what they want to do, and they don't care. It's all willy nilly. And I go, my God, who's in charge? You know, it's like these females. I'm not going to pick on females. Please forgive me out there if there's any nice females, ex-military or law enforcement out there listening. But the left-wing Democrats in California is a big uh, it's a big conspiracy to switch everything over. They want all females to be in charge.
Well, see
I've heard
that
this directly from the mouths of these people that I've run into.
they've already done
I
it.
go, okay, that's interesting. So if they want all females, well, no, they're still doing it. It's like if you've got a mayor and it's a male, they don't want him. That's a sexist response. It's not to the qualified person. It's not to the best qualified. They're going to the females because they just want it to be a female because they're female and they want to have female representation beyond just representation. So I go, well, you know, it's still going against the core beliefs that if you're qualified, why are they lowering the standard like they did years ago when they had the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission stuff? And if you're black, if you're Hispanic, you're Asian, you're female, now it's getting into transgendered and LBGT, blah, 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 whatever
Yeah.
other letters after that, then they are sacrificing the best qualified just because, well, we have to have representation from some left-wing, idiot out there who's a millennial that doesn't know anything, and he couldn't hit the side of a barn,
Yeah.
but we're going to give him a badge and a gun anyway, and he's going to get the same pay.
Yeah.
No, that's
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
It's totally wrong. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You know,
We're what my point that I was trying to make is it's already happened in Europe. And so California and the East Coast are both following a European model, and that is happening right now.
well, they're
And
failing on that, aren't they?
well, only in a few countries now.
I'm sorry,
Uh,
Merkel. What's her name? Merkel.
She's still there. She just has no longer the power she once had. But the EU still
And then,
exists
and then
under
the
Juncker.
lady, the lady, There was a lady who just resigned her position in England,
Yeah, Theresa
right?
May. But
What
still,
the
did you?
the Brexit stuff?
Yes, but did you see all the male politicians running out the social signal? Anyways, we're getting into politics. I didn't want to get there. This is about you, brother. My point is,
Oh no,
right now,
but it is about politics indirectly because we report to a person who's elected by the
right,
people, and unfortunately that is politics. So therefore, if they're failing, then the people are failing, and they need to do something about it.
yeah,
And we're allowing people in Congress to fail. That is the power of the people as well. So
right,
when the Congress doesn't represent the best interests of the people, I have to keep saying it that way, and the senators and the congressmen and all these other corrupt SOBs that are there, including the SO whatevers, then we need to get rid of them. We need to abolish them.
yeah,
We need to
yeah. But
boycott
that's
them. We need to
that
have them removed
we
from
can do that.
office.
We can do that on another show. My point was introducing you to my audience, and that's what I was trying to do. We did it so well the last
Well,
time.
I'm a Thomas Jefferson follower,
Right,
and we both share the same birth date on April 13th, which
right.
makes us both very strong Aries. But I try to do a thing where, and I was raised this way, or at least I raised myself, is to give people a chance to do it right. When they screw up, then you jump in. When they really screw up, then you take over for them and fix it because they don't know what the hell they're doing. And they're going to yell and scream when things get really bad and wonder how come all these people are coming in illegally? How come everybody's getting sick? And how come this at the border and that at the border? Oh my God, we don't know what we're doing. But, well, you guys asked for it and you failed. So now it's time to let the alpha males, I suppose there's some alpha females out there, right?
There are. Yeah, I've worked
Right?
with
So,
them.
and
Hell yeah.
I've, yeah, I've come across a few, and they need to get this thing straightened out and do it right instead of this pansy butt thing where they're just like, well, here, we're going to let you do this, and it's a game, like Pelosi. Pelosi, in one of her meetings with Trump and Schumer, were like, well, she was trying to act like the mom on the playground thing, trying to separate two boys or something from fighting. I said, she's stupid.
A
She needs
schoolyard
to be
mom.
forced out.
Yep. And
Yeah, she's stupid. She needs to be moved out.
but see, the only
You
women
were
who
going to
are
say something.
the only women that are doing anything that could even be interpreted as alpha are people like AOC, and they're running to socialism, communism.
Oh,
And
my favorite,
yeah,
Ocasio.
I call her accidentally, occasionally, or accidentally orgasmic cortex because I can't stand her, and she is what's wrong with our nation and the millennials. But the more important thing is that you're here, and I've got two awesome pictures to show people. They're up right now, and that's when you found the shoes with the dope in them. Matter of fact,
Oh yeah.
both those pictures, if you go through immigration and customs, or if you go through CBPOs, uh, those pictures are showed on how to detect different stuff. And the thing that everybody forgets is how effective and efficient we did this on the show that didn't come through. We told your story about how effective you were. You were like an actual drug sniffing dog by yourself. You could sense it. This is before all the little hullabaloo detectors we have now.
I
It was just
know. In
street
fact,
cop sense.
they don't understand the expertise, the training, and the hard work and diligence. And I want to repeat that. It is not easy to sit there and evaluate a human being walking up to an entry gate or driving up a certain way. And you have to look at that person as a whole first. What they look like, what they're wearing, their mannerisms, all the way down from the head to the toes of their shoes or whatever they're wearing, and figure out a profile. And you're not thinking that way. You're just looking at them like an automated machine. You're analyzing every minute second of what that person is doing. Do they look like they're nervous? Are they smuggling something or not? And if all else fails, you still want to talk to them anyway, then you can ask stress questions and do things like that. I could give classes on it, but I don't see anybody jumping up to pay me a lot of money right now from the government
Right.
because they're trying to keep me quiet or something.
Well, no, you're exactly right.
But yeah, that's a real hard thing to learn.
No, you're exactly right. It's you got to really be a people person, and I got that with my first federal agency I worked for, and I got to be able to make good snap decisions on people by simply thinking, does this make sense? And if it doesn't make sense, now that leads to more questions and more answers.
Well,
And
it goes high speed.
yeah,
And remember, and I was Secret Service first, so that meant that I was looking at people or humans or what looked like humans to be a threat to the president or the first family or who I was protecting or at the White House or the embassies or counter-terrorist type activity that I'm
right.
analyzing. And I'm telling you, they failed even in Washington when I was there in 74. We should have had a lot of things, and I kept suggesting, and they were failing and failing, and I'm going, my God, I can't be responsible. They don't even give us the right equipment to work with. It was all on what you had between your ears and down below. That's it. That's all it
You're
was
right.
dependent on. And a lot of people don't get that, but they never worked in the field. They didn't carry a gun. They didn't have threats. They weren't in the military. It's 24/7. And yet I'm out there doing all this stuff and I'm proving a point. I got 3 seizures in one 8-hour shift. Knocks them crazy. Supervisor was corrupt. He wanted me to keep going back out on primary. Well, if you put me back on primary, I'm going to get another one. I proved that point. And then
Yep.
3 nights in a row on a midnight shift. They're supposed to take you off primary after the third time because you're supposed to have a break, sucking up fumes. They didn't do it. So it's like they're constantly failing, but they're not getting the idea. They should have promoted me, put me in a special training type deal where I could float around and do whatever I needed to do. And at some point, I was actually appointed the security officer for the port of entry, the largest world port of entry, San Ysidro, which was kind of interesting
Yes,
because
it is.
then I was able to float around and look at security violations that would be something that they should address because anybody could drop by and leave a package and walk away and nobody would know about it because they didn't have cameras everywhere and they didn't have all these suggestions that I made. And they stole suggestions, by the way. If you submitted a suggestion, you had to submit it through their stupid chain of command, through a supervisor who was corrupt, who may or may not countersign it, send it up to the port director, to the district director to see what you suggested because they all have to know. And then by that time, they forward it to the customs commissioner at that time, whoever it was, so they could get it. And then they put it to their evaluation team of some sort. And then they may or may not respond and give you an award or not. Like the license plate readers. That was my suggestion. Radiation
Yep.
detection devices, just to give you 2 examples, just two.
You know what's so funny about the license plate readers is they miss. Like, I'll give you an example. A car comes through with a female. Let's just say the last name was Brown. Her husband actually was a federal employee for an agency we talked about earlier. I'm not going to say who. And we had a chemotherapy woman who was going through chemotherapy, working primary. By the time it gets back to me, and of
Well,
course everybody gets the A&D alert, armed and dangerous, and you know what that is, the circle of death where everybody's just going to shoot each other around the car.
well,
And
you already said A&D. I already knew what it was. It
yeah,
wasn't vitamins A&D, that's for sure.
well, I was just saying that for the listeners, brother. But the point is that goes
No,
out,
I know you
and
did.
it
I know
was
you did.
it was for let's just say it was for a Christopher Brown, and of course, a female that's brown is not a Christopher Brown. That's just not the case. So, anyways, it devolved into this woman asking the husband, the officer, asking the husband, I don't care who you work for. What do you do? You're not telling me what you do. And I happened to be walking out of my area and overhearing that. Guess what?
Uh,
5 minutes after we released her, which we would have to do, we get a call from that agency. And they're like, what went on? We want a memo from
right.
everybody that overheard it. And of course, I overheard it, so I have to write a memo on it. But because they still employed Chemo Brain, I had to write a flipping report on it, a memo. And but how many Muslims were out there that just blew that man's cover because of that woman? And that's the kind of
Well,
quality.
I should stop you and caution you about certain information and details, but our agencies work with informants. We identify them. We do all kinds of stuff for them. We use them all the time. And some idiot sounds like somebody put something in on a lookout. And there's like 9 or 10 categories of lookouts, right?
My point was it was caused by a misread by Soundex, which is what they have tied into both the
I know.
passports
Exactly.
and tied into the
Yeah,
license plate readers. So that's how it happened.
exactly. Well, that's a tie-in with the computer with technical support and those idiots that don't know what they're doing because license plate readers, depending on what state it is, will still read a certain way, but they supposedly were still trying to work the bugs out of those things. But that's their technical people that didn't do it right in the first place. So you can get a Mexican plate. In California, they've got temporary paper plates right now that look almost like Mexican plates, except they're paper, but it's just
Yep.
numbers on a piece of paper. We don't care about that. All we look at now is barcodes. See, now they're getting upgraded to barcode technology or chips. I'll
Both of
predict to
them.
you
Yep.
right now that they will eventually have it so that we will get the sign of the beast. Everybody will get a barcode somehow. And I've suggested this about ID cards not more than an hour ago again. I repeated an email to POTUS that with all the passport issues and stuff like that, and they're doing federally qualified driver's licenses in most of the states, which is still another stupid, idiotic thing because they've got DMV personnel looking at a birth certificate saying, okay, that's your birth certificate, it looks real. We'll
Well,
put you down as a U.S. citizen and then go from there. Well, they still are going to be scrutinized when they come across the border by somebody like me, hopefully, who knows different. But even the passports and now voter registration, which is what I'm leading up to. Mexico has a voter registration ID card that's better than a national ID card.
hell yeah.
Picture, fingerprint, picture, fingerprint, a verified address through whatever means, your electric bill or whatever, short of actually having a DNA sample embedded in a chip, which records that that's you. But still, when you come through some located border entry station, driving, walking, flying, swimming, whatever, tunneling, whatever, then eventually it's going to get down to DNA biotechnology like the aliens do out of Area 51 that
It's
we've been
already
trying to back
it's
engineer.
it's already there.
You touch it,
But my
right?
point, it's already there. But my point is that Soundex also is tied into text. So if, like I said, Chemo Brain decides that it's a mishit, everybody knows it's a mishit, and yet she wants to deeply delve into the husband in front of other people who were secondaried who were actually on watch list.
I'm sorry. Is this person a supervisor?
No, it wasn't. It was just somebody the union really fought for, the
If they weren't,
NTEU.
if they weren't a supervisor, I would have told them to go pound sand. I don't need to do a report
No,
unless I pulled and shot somebody.
the supervisor is the one who came out after they got the call from no such agency that why was our guy who was an employee, an American citizen of
Uh-huh.
no such agency, and
No, they're trying to disclose something. It's none of their business.
no,
That
no,
supervisor
no,
is in trouble. I
that
would have told
no,
him.
no, you're
I
not.
would have read the law to him.
You didn't understand what I said. Chemo Brain was not a
Well, tell me.
supervisor. Chemo Brain was not
And
a
leave her out of
supervisor.
it. Leave
No,
leave her
she
out.
was the one. She was the one questioning this guy. The supervisor
And let her write
got
the report,
got the
right?
supervisor got a call from no such agency, and no such agency.
Why don't you just say the agency instead?
I just did. No such agency. NSA, right? That's what we call them now.
Okay, got
Okay.
it.
Anyway,
All right, thank you. Thank you.
so
I
she,
hope the audience understood
yeah.
that.
I thought you were, but it may be
Hey,
a new way we do it.
look, NSA has no authority to tell U.S. Customs what to do on one of their informants unless it is an
It
informant
wasn't an
and why they
informant.
had it in the
It
computer.
wasn't in. It was not an informant.
Okay.
It was an actual agent. And this
Or,
chemo brain,
or an employee.
this chemo brain, in front of other people that were out in secondary, you know, they group everybody,
See,
screams
now you're
out.
buffering.
Well, she screams out publicly. I'm not buffering on my end, so we're good. Screams out.
No, but I can. No, but I can hear you. That's why I wanted to tell you so that you could mark that
Screams.
on the time
Scream.
frame there.
Yeah, screams out. What do you do? In front of God and everybody, and he has to whisper what he did, and he made a call to his supervisor, which generated a call to our supervisor, and we all had to write a report. This is, a memo as to what happened and why was this guy's cover blown. And it all started from
they still
a Sound
X.
X.
Is what I'm telling.
It all started from a Sound X mishit, a text mishit, because now they've got it all grouped together. So instantly, an A&D, armed and dangerous, comes up, and it's a total mishit.
They still screwed it up.
And even if you type in,
look, I don't want to belabor this incident, but they screwed up is what they did.
yes,
And I know what they should have done.
Yeah, well, okay, but my point is that it wraps other people into the bullshit. And that woman should not have been on primary, because all it takes is on primary, and she came in to the secondary and started belaboring that guy and making more of it than it was. All she had to do was misidentification. Boom. And it's done on primary.
What a bunch of idiots. Listen,
well,
if that woman had come out to me, I would have told her, I'm not talking to you on primary. I would have told her off right there. Say, leave the area or I'm going to arrest you. I don't give a shit if she has a badge. She's still interfering.
No, she was the primary officer, and we had an hour on, an hour off, and sometimes mix up. They do a lot of weird shit on the border. And now they do. And it's called chaos, okay? And she happened to get chaosed in while her husband was in there and happened to be the interviewer on secondary for the husband. And this is how it all started.
They're still not allowed. They're still not allowed to go out on primary and interfere with an inspector and their inspection. Period. Let's move on.
She was the inspector on primary. That's what I'm trying to say. Because of the way they do chaos and bring them in, she became the secondary too. Anyways, it's just going on and on. But my point is,
it's not going to be clear to the public listening to this radio.
It was screwed. It was screwed up.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're good with that.
Let's move on to something else.
Yeah. So go on and get into the shoes and what you found in the trunk, brother. Yep.
God, this thing is really messing up. What'd you call it? The OMS or whatever you called it?
OBS. It's not OBS.
OBS is screwing up while we're talking. I'm telling you,
it's not.
That it sounds like it's blurred and slow, and then it buffers out or blanks out. You've got a problem at your end.
Nope. When you listen to it, you'll find that OBS is working fine. There's no There's no slurring or blurring. It
is. I'm telling you.
It may sound.
Let's move on to the next subject here, because I can't stay on this.
Yeah, I was just telling you. Um, I've got the picture of you with the shoes and in the back of that SUV pulling out evidence. And so just speak on those two items that I have up.
Um, okay, let's talk about the shoes. That's where I was looking for certain profiled people coming in with certain types of shoes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which is a lot of different thousands of profiles. And I tagged this guy, pulled him in. He was nervous. I already had his ID in my pocket. That's the first thing you do is you look at it. If he's nervous, you're going to take him in for a pat down. You pocket that ID so you got possession of it, so he doesn't run away. And then I tried to do a pat down on him, and he was trying to move around too much, obviously being deceptive. So I cuffed him up. No problem.
Nice.
That only happens once in a while. A lot of people don't know the indicators I just explained to you. If a guy's moving around too much, you cuff him up. There's something wrong.
He's uncomfortable.
Or he's, of course, because he's getting ready to run. So once I cuffed him up, took his shoes off, after I did do a complete pat down, he still had packages on him and in his shoes.
Wow.
And I walked him over to the other side, which is where we have the holding area, where the stupid supervisor, I won't mention this Hispanic supervisor's name, Honorio Garcia, Garcia, and he was on the phone talking to God knows who, his girlfriend or whatever, and I'm like yelling at him, hey, I need you to come over here, because he's supposed to supervise a strip search. They call it personal search, but it's a strip search. You have to do a strip search when you get contraband. You have to do it to make sure they don't have something else, etc. Weapons,
Yep.
more contraband. You have to get the supervisor because that's what they set it up as. Customs was a stupid agency. It still is, and they still make these mistakes. And they give promotions to people that do not belong in the United States government.
You're right.
This same,
It's a monkey
this
move
same,
up.
this same supervisor later gave the heroin to the Mexican narcs across the border at Mexicali. That's a violation of law. And by the time I even got home, I had a death threat on my unlisted landline on a little cassette, on a cassette tape, which I kept and gave to Internal Affairs. And I made calls all over the place asking for my transfer back to San Diego at that point, because I was only supposed to be there for a year. So they lied, right? Oh, it's no big deal. Yep. They lie all the time. Just lie to them. And that's another Democrat thing. So anyway, that supervisor is still there. The district director made a phone call and said, oh, that'll never happen again. I said, it should have never happened in the first place. What did we wear badges and guns and go through academies and be taught about bribery and stuff by internal affairs agents like on the first week? 18 U.S.C. 201. If you violate this, you got to call up internal affairs, or you got to call them up if you're offered a bribe or money, et cetera, et cetera. And here's a supervisor, a GS-12 and a 13. He's probably a 14 right now. Why didn't internal affairs come in, rip his badge off, cup him up, take his gun away if he had one, and whisk him away somewhere for 10 or 15 or 20 years?
And it's still the same way. It's still the same way at FLETC. They give you a little card. I still have mine with a 1-800 number. If you ever get bribed, know somebody, see something, say something, right?
Doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It still doesn't work.
I know.
I am living proof. I'll tell you right now. If anybody says, well, John, did you do this? Of course I did. There's nobody in this planet that could tell me I didn't do it right and that I didn't make the proper calls and notifications. Nobody.
Right.
So I get tired of hearing these idiots that, well, John, did you try writing a letter to do this, or did you try calling your congressman?
Right.
Those are mostly blonde females. Not to knock blonde females today.
Well, that's a good thing. Those blonde females care about you, I guess. You're doing good, brother.
Well, not really, but it's just another example of the stupidity that exists by other people, that they don't understand my background. They don't get it. If you were to take a 007 and multiply that times 100, I think I'm getting up there pretty damn close.
Oh, hell
above
yeah.
Them.
Hell yeah.
They don't get the level. They just don't get it. And I said, wait a minute. How could you get all of that after just talking to this guy for just a couple of minutes? Because I listened.
Yep.
But when people listen, they don't understand what listening entails. When
That's
you
it.
listen to a person's voice at the border, do you listen to what they're saying, or do you listen to the inflection, or do you listen to see if they're nervous, or do you listen to see if the accent is correct? That's just four or five,
Oh yeah,
right?
you're
So it
exactly
gets
right.
into the behavioral analysis. But
Snap
yeah,
behavioral analysis.
behavioral analysis is not taught at the in-depth lengths that you are going to get when you finally do and utilize it at the border or where contact point you're at. Because they give you the basics to work with, but if you don't utilize it and practice with it, it's like me. I used to go out and buy books on smuggling
Right.
before it was popular. I used to do the research. I bought a book about a guy who is still alive, I guess, somewhere in Northern California. Adventures of a Weed Smuggler or some damn thing. And then there were some other ones on aircraft smuggling, and then there were some other things that. See, I used to read that magazine, High Times magazine, and then if you go into
Yep.
the back, they had all these cool subjects, and I go, oh yeah, that's the drug culture, that's the stuff about
Yep.
smuggling and going to other countries and all this other stuff. I said, cool, I'm going to get that book, and I did, and I would read it. But it was just an added feature of something that added to my resume, basically. But when you're actually utilizing it at the border and you're processing 150 people in less than 20 minutes or a half hour, do the math. 8 hours a day, 4 hours on primary, so many hours in secondary for 15 years. I've talked to and screened upwards of 3.5 million people.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
You will not see human beings on this planet process that many people normally.
Oh, you're
Just
right.
in general. You walk into Joe Blow. Where do you work? Oh, I work in an office downtown. Or Susie Q. Where do you work? Oh, she's in an office downtown. How many people do you see? Oh, maybe 5, 10 people, maybe 25 a day, maybe. You know,
You're right.
it's totally different. People have no idea of the exposure that you're out there, and you're screening for the government, for the country to protect people here, and they don't get that. And yet that stupid supervisor, whose name I don't like to mention, Honorio Garcia, gave heroin to Mexican narcs. I wonder how much money he got for doing that. I mean, it
Oh,
was worth over $100,000 easy.
I'm sure they paid more than the
You
street
know,
value of that dope to him to get it back.
well, go figure. I could use that money as a snitch fee, and I'll take my retirement right now.
Yeah, right.
And then no, listen. The government has to pay back 50%. They have to pay back what you put into a system, which is a lie,
I know
like
that.
Social Security. So let's say you put $150,000. That means they're supposed to match it up 150,000 for the rest of your life. It doesn't happen.
It
They
doesn't
lie.
happen. It's a lie. You're right. But
Yeah. So all these idiots are at work right now. Everybody who's listening to my voice is got to think and reevaluate their system. They're not going to get that money that they put in. They're not going to get Social Security money because that's been missing for years, $2.6 trillion something. And if they retire, they have to live out to to benefit what they put in. And I know guys that retired and they died of a heart attack. Where's that money? They're gone. They
oh, you're right.
wasted 20 to 30 years of their life. For what? The nice house, the beautiful wife and kids, and all this family life and whatever. For what? The American dream, basically. They've tossed away based on a lie, and these other people were taking money hand over foot. I'm thinking of Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and a bunch of the Democrats over in Congress right now. If they serve 2 years, they can collect their retirement and their pay and their medical for the rest of their life, just for one term.
Well,
That's it.
we talked about this on the show that didn't record. Um, Pelosi and
Okay.
Newsom are related, and
Oh yeah,
people don't
yeah,
even
yeah.
look at how incestuous Congress is and the Senate.
Well, it
Uh,
fits into the profile I told you earlier about
right.
these women that wanted all women employees to be in positions of power on the West Coast so that they can get what they want, whatever. And if Newsom is connected, as you say, then he's still part of the plan. But eventually, after they get tired of him, they're going to spit him out and put a female in there, no matter what, just to have a female. So that's sexism, and that doesn't work. It does not work.
Well,
you have to have qualified people, period.
Well, that's the whole Me Too-ism, and that's why they try to. I know it's all bullshit, bro, but I honestly mean it when I call John Carmen a brother, and I mean this a lot, folks, and that's why we have spirited talk. But in the end, classical liberalism, Jeffersonian liberalism, is not a bad thing. I can agree to disagree with somebody, and we can even have a disagreement, and it's just spirited talk. I'm sure he feels the same way. My greater point to that.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I was thinking about Thomas Jefferson as you were saying that, because I think he was listed as a Democratic Republican or something. I said, well, these days you couldn't say that in the same mouthful.
I know it'd be a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
But the greater point to this conversation is that folks are getting to know you. They're seeing you're a no bullshit guy. You are out there in the front lines seeing corruption. And we talked about this the last time about TEX, Treasury Enforcement Communication System. People do not understand if you're being pre-screened or screened at the border. All the information by pressing the F keys, we can see from State Department, we can see from your taxes, we can see from everything that's in Treasury, and even your inlets and all the other little things, the crimes that might be happening in your states.
Oh yeah, I used to memorize those queries because most of the people I worked with were not very familiar with Text 2 because there's a difference Text 1 to Text 2. And I had the little cheat sheet cards that were laminated or regular plastic cards that they used to give out to a few people.
I still have mine.
And I used to make my own up. I used to type up my own on a computer, reduce it on a scanner or a Xerox machine at Kinko's or something, and get it down to the right size, and then make like 5 or 6 copies or 10 copies. Then I would put them together, laminate them, and rivet them or whatever, and carry them in my pocket so I could have it anywhere I went, my duty shirt, wherever. And I could look up these connections. You just mentioned inlets, which is a National Law Enforcement Telecommunications System, or CLETs. All these other ones, so that you could look up the information and or run a warrant check through the state and local because they didn't have it tied in through the federal. How stupid they are. How stupid. Why would we have a federal system running names and stuff, and we don't have it tied in through anything but NCIC?
Oh, that's hilarious, bro. And I'll tell you why I find that hilarious. There was a guy who came through with some girl and her kids, which I'm assuming was his wife and kids. It wasn't my case. I don't know. I had to drive the guy to the hospital because he faked a heart attack, right?
Oh, we've seen those too. That's usually an immigration issue.
No, this was a legit U.S. citizen.
No, but it's usually an immigration scam.
Well, this guy
9 times out of 10 usually.
Well, this guy had a rape charge out of Florida. Now, here's the funny part about this. If it would have been a sheriff's deputy who would have done it, or a DPO, Detroit police officer, he'd be in jail after he got out of the hospital. Well, once he gets out of the hospital, he's fine. We're taking him back, and over the radio, this is no bullshit, they're like, well, they have an extradition of no more than 500 miles.
That's what I was going to bring up. Yeah. You have to have an extradition from an adjoining state unless it's a felony of some sort that they'll extradite, which means they have to hold them locally up to 72 hours or longer.
Yep.
Otherwise, they'll hold them for up to 72 hours or whatever, and then kick them loose.
Well, this was a felony. Rape is a felony, but they had somehow put it on at a 500-mile limit, right? And so the supervisor calls up. Now we're leaving the hospital, nowhere near the port where his wife and kids are. He doesn't have his phone, nothing. And we're like, he hears it. He goes, they're like, you'll have to let him go when you get back to the port because they don't want to extradite. And we're like, okay, understand. Because remember, if you go to the hospital or something, there's always two of you. And, feds are like butt cheeks. They always travel in pairs.
Usually.
And, yeah. And,
Usually.
Yeah, usually. And the interesting part was as soon as he heard that, he's like, let me out.
That's right.
And we were like, you want to go back and get with your wife and kids or what's going on? And he goes, no, let me out right now. Well, we let him out. Yeah, we let him out in an area he probably didn't want to be in, but whatever.
Just get him to sign the paperwork and that's it. He's up the road. But there's so many ways around that situation. If I was involved, I would have made some phone calls and said, look, you guys put it in the system. It's in a federal system. If you don't extradite, your case is gone, period. So don't bother us again, type of thing, right? But then you have to make a call to a stupid duty agent who may say, wait a minute, I'm going to hold that guy on something else because he attempted to come through and there's another federal law he may have broken, and then they'll work it. And then they'll get the U.S. attorney involved, and then they'll work it. And then it'll turn out to be, after an in-depth interview, well, wait a minute. He came across an international border. That's a special category. And if he was an escapee or if he's trying to go through another border checkpoint because he's trying to avoid prosecution, that's a federal crime right there. So they could have recharged him with a new crime and then tacked on the other. And I bet that state on the East Coast or outside the 500-mile thing, they could have done that. But you know what? When they do that kind of stuff, I have no respect for the people that put it in the system in the first place. Because if they put a 500-mile limit, don't waste my time.
It was from Miami, Florida.
Yeah, so I would have told the guy, have a nice day, 500-foot rule, have a nice day, and then call these idiots up and said, yeah, you guys put it in there 500 foot or 500 mile. Oh, that was a mistake. It was actually 5,000 miles or something. No, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
somebody screwed up.
No, that's what the supervisors did. They called, and they're like, we're not traveling more than 500 miles for his case. And you as well as I know, it's very hard to get USAAs to do anything that's not going to give them a lot of publicity. And so
they're the worst.
They are the worst because they're looking for prosecutions.
Yeah, well, you know the people that are involved which were mostly lesbian females, and I said that for a reason. In San Diego County alone, with a big D after their name, and they got promoted for covering up the information I reported to an assistant U.S. attorney, the Attorney General's office under Reno. An FBI agent was present. Yep. I gave him like a 3-inch binder, upwards of 15 years worth of special documents and cases that I actually worked or came across. And they got promoted to supervisory positions and a judge, and then another one I just heard that worked the Chapo Guzman case. I think her name was Laura Duffy, also lesbian Democrat. She got a judgeship as a superior California judge position, even though she was a federal prosecutor.
Imagine that.
That's the kind of people they want in office, so that when you have to bring your case before a stupid judge like these people, they're very political, and if you don't fit their little deal and it comes out that you're Republican or conservative or some other deal that they don't believe in, you'll get slammed, they won't work it, or they'll mess with you. It's very political. We're at war right now, and people don't realize it.
No, it's a cold civil war. That's
exactly
how I like to phrase it, and it's about and it's about total dominance. And that's why they're taking voices off, like, off the internet. But my my point is, to my channel, this from the first interview that we did, is to tell men, it's time that you stand and you find people like John Carmen, who are excellent examples of what honor, loyalty, virtue. You can say, well, he went to prison over something. Yeah, it was cooked up on him. He stood, though. He stood. He didn't flinch. And he showed intestinal fortitude. And that's something, Weibos, whatever you want to call it. He showed that. And young men, this is the kind of man that should be emulated because of his outstanding career and having. Think about this: before there was Bradley Manning, whatever trans, whatever he's doing. At least he went through the process. I have respect for him in a way, in another way not. I have no respect, honestly, no respect, and Jaffe always hates on me on this, but because Edward Snowden ran to Russia, he didn't face his medicine.
I agree. I agree with you on that. I still support him in what he
Yes.
did, because in some cases you have to do what he did because of his information. He knew firsthand that it was so dangerous. He would not stand a chance. He would not get a fair trial of any kind.
Right.
Then I could go, okay, then I understand it at that level. My case in particular, I was very educated in what I was doing. I reported through all of the reporting agencies, through the chain of command, all the way to the top. I mean, all the way to the top. And then once you go to the Congress, then you can go public and all these other things. They don't understand the Whistleblower Protection Act. They don't understand the No Fear Act, which is a waste of time. It's just words on a piece of paper.
Right.
They don't care about whistleblowers. And even today, I'm not sure Trump even understands the difference between a whistleblower and what he called leakers.
Exactly.
So you have to support Ed Snowden in another way. But at the other chance, I'd go, well, he didn't really go through the stuff like I did, which I wouldn't wish on anybody. But still, that's what they tell you. They lie to you and tell you, well, you got to jump through this hoop and go over this hurdle before you could do whatever. And you have to, this is the phrase that pays, you have to exhaust all your administrative remedies before you can go to federal court law. No, you don't. But I did it anyway to prove a point. And they screwed up, and they lied, and it doesn't matter. They waste your time, and they waste your life. I could do more. I could do a lot more. I'm just waiting for Trump to pick up on it, or somebody under his staff to go, wait a minute, we need to help this guy. We need to back him up, reinstate him, give him his full back pay and promotions, give him his credentials, and get him to work doing some stuff that these other guys are lying about still, like James Comey, for instance.
Yes, no, that's the whole point. I brought that up, brother.
He's embedded.
Yeah, but
all these people are embedded.
But that was the whole point. I brought this up. Is, folks, honestly, there will be links to everything about him, his sites, and I want you to say this because we'll close this out. Otherwise, we'll be here till 11 o'clock tonight to
tomorrow.
Upload it. Yeah. But I will make sure you get a clean copy of this. This show is probably the most important show I've done. I believe in this man, and I will stake my sacred honor, loyalty, that this man is telling you the truth. He was set up, unlike, and here's the reason why I say this, unlike Snowden. He stayed. He showed the consummate honor. He showed the consummate loyalty, trying to do what's right, and they still set him up. look, I am no pixie lily. I do not think that if Snowden would have stayed here, he would have even survived. But this man had more intestinal fortitude and more honor and loyalty to his nation that he stood and faced it. And that's why I don't think highly of Edward Snowden. And
You should bring up Julian Assange connected to Chelsea Manning right now, because he had hidden out in this embassy for years. Now they use the ruse. This is a ruse for an excuse that they're going to extradite him to the United States under charges, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, that's fine. Do it. Get him out of there.
Right.
Get him into U.S. custody. Once
Yep.
he's in U.S. custody, I'm now hearing, and I've talked to Chelsea Manning's attorney, by the way, in New York, is that Manning was already let go on a commuted sentence by a president.
Right.
They can't go back and double charge somebody, but yet they're bringing him back in for BS questioning under an alleged grand jury, which is 18 months or 12 to 18 months every cycle.
I honestly think Trump's going to pardon him.
Well, here's the point. Once he gets into the United States, oh, you know what? The U.S. attorney screwed up. We don't really have a charge, and we can't charge him for treason because he's not even a U.S. citizen.
Right.
Hey, here's a taxi fare. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then Manning should have been released like days ago. I'm looking at my watch, stat, because they can't do anything to them, because without two people, they can't prove a conspiracy. And that's typically what they tried with me. And under the law, I'll repeat this for everybody to benefit because I've done the research, they cannot have a customs informant or an agency informant of any kind call you up and say, hey, let's go steal that package of gum. The infamous example.
Entrapment.
Exactly. It's perfect. It's imperfect. It doesn't matter. It is entrapment. It's illegal as hell. A government agent from the FBI can't call you up and say, hey, this is Agent so-and-so, and you know them. And they say, let's go steal a pack of gum. They can't do it.
Right.
They cannot involve themselves or participate in a crime. And if you agree to commit a misdemeanor with another person, it then becomes a federal felony or a felony.
1983, color of law.
Yeah.
But, no, my point is I was letting you please pimp your shows. I'll put it in the description. We will do more of these shows, folks, and we're going to peel the onion back. This gentleman that you met, you probably don't realize he is one of the first whistleblowers, and he needs help right now. And when he talked about contacting your congressman, look, I will tell you right now, I've done it. You write letters to your congressman. Jim Jordan out of Ohio. Any Ohioans here, you contact Jim. You send a personal letter. Do not send an email, because anybody can do an email. A personal hand-signed letter from you saying, look into this. You do it for the president of the United States, looking for a pardon for him.
Protection is the big part. Protection, reinstatement, back pay. But protection is the big deal.
And also, Kim Kardashian's legal project.
I tweeted her last night.
Awesome, brother. Awesome, brother.
Hey, even Kanye, I tweeted him too, and I put it. You know how you're limited on the tweets?
Yeah.
To like, I don't know how many characters. So it's less than 100 characters or whatever it is. But what's interesting is I've learned how to attach a photo or a picture of me unloading dope, or a picture of my article, which is up there. I think I sent you that one as an example, so that they know that's me. That's the guy we're talking and tweeting to about. And then I'll put my contact name, my email, and my phone number up there. And I don't know if they're going to read it. I mean, I've sent tweets to Trump as well, and Mike Pence and other people, and they just don't get through.
You write hard letters to these people with Kim. definitely send her tweets, find out her address. I don't know it. I'm not saying dox her or anything
Hey,
like that.
hey, do you have an idea what I could do with a person like that in assisting them on other
Well, you're
cases?
you're local to her,
Yeah,
and
I could get a job doing a consultant job with
yeah,
her.
but
And my
my
God, she's got
my
so much money she could pay out the rest of my future, and I
yeah,
could be a
no,
permanent
no,
consultant.
it's not about the money that I'm talking
No,
about.
no,
I'm
no,
talking
but
about
I
your freedom
no, but
and
I need to. I know what you're saying, but I'm just saying, as a survivability thing, they have so much money they could go, okay, we're going to pay out your future. Here's a car. Here's a place to live. Here's enough money to pay for your bills and food or whatever, and then work for them, helping other people who have been slightly damaged or severely damaged, or that guy that was on death row, for instance.
right.
There's a lot of people besides me that are out there that are
Well,
probably suffering.
put 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 your
You know,
put your sites out there by name right now, because if we don't really stop this, we're going to be up very long to reply to anybody that is watching my stream when it goes into where you know it's going to go on my page, and I trust that you'll be on there with me, just like the last time we were both waiting. And but this time it's gone good. I'm looking at everything. Everything's green lighted. It's perfect.
cool.
So we've had an awesome show. I just wish that first show was so epic. We didn't get into politics and all that stuff, but anyways, it's still good, and I love it. And I think everybody in Kaiser's Castle will honestly love this show. And with that being said, thank you for sitting on my big orange couch, taking your cup of tea, your coffee, your soda, if that's what you want to drink, or your adult libation, and listening to a very good man. Remember, John, and make sure that you write a letter at least for John Carmen. And now, please give out your sites, and I will link them in the description.
Oh, okay, that's customscorruption.com. It's now has an HTTPS in front of it for security. But I've got two pages to it basically. If you know how to do the links or navigate, problem is since 2007 I've been getting so many attacks from the government that they've broken some of the links. You can still go into the archive.org or the waybackmachine.org, put in the actual customscorruption.com and go back before 2007, and you can see some of the stuff with my resume or my background. But anybody out there who wants to contact me can contact me through James here or through my email, john.a.carman, Carman, at gmail.com, and send me questions or comments or whatever. And I have a Facebook under the same name, john.a.carman, and I have a Patreon page, which some people are actually donating $5 a month, or whatever it takes. I mean, if I could make $3,000 to $6,000 a month, I could actually survive, and you won't be hearing interviews from me out of my car on the street somewhere, that kind of thing. But kudos out to James here, because he's doing an excellent job, and he understands. He knows. That's a big deal. That's a big difference between James and Mike Wallace, or somebody else from 60 Minutes, or all these other news people I've talked to. They never worked or carried a badge.
That's right, brother, and that's why I call you brother. And with that being said, I have to tell you, thank you all for listening. Shuff out.